Hello, this is Pastor Terry Goodman, and I want to welcome you to the Wesleyan Connection. This podcast is primarily for the clergy and laity of the Holston Annual Conference. Join with me now as I take a look around the Connection and share some of the things happening in the churches of our annual conference. Good morning out there. This is Pastor Terry Goodman, and you have found the Wesleyan Connection podcast. This is episode number 85. That's right. It's hard to believe I've been doing this now for 85 episodes, and actually, if back in September I didn't really think about it, I completed my first year on this podcast. And so if you are sticking with me through thick and thin, you will have been with me for a year now. 85 podcasts, including this one under my belt, for you to go back and to listen to. Today is going to be one of those podcasts, again, it's my show. This idea struck me, and I'm going to use it. It's not going to be interviewing anybody else. And, the stated purpose of this podcast is to talk about the people, events, ministries, activities of the Holston Annual Conference. Well, that's a very broad topic. I'm going to narrow it down a little bit and talk more specifically about the Christian, what it means to be a Christian disciple, what it means to follow Jesus and to grow in our faith. What I'm going to share with you this morning is the audio excerpt from a Facebook Live that I put up on my church Facebook page. And so if you hear me mention video in there, I'm not totally confused. I do realize that I am talking to you now in an audio format, but I'm pulling the soundtrack off of a video. And I'm going to be talking about living out our beliefs, the United Methodist Way. That's a book. Actually, the book is entitled The United Methodist Way, Living Our Beliefs, written by Kenneth L. Carter. I'm using that, and you'll hear why I'm using that and why I'm reading that book in the audio itself. But I really hope that you will begin to think about what it means to be a disciple. And there's no need me going over it here because you'll hear it in the audio. But I think that's something that we as pastors and that as members of local churches need to take very seriously. The problem is not that we don't have beliefs. The problem is not that we don't have things that we have given assent to and say, I believe this, I believe that. The problem is often in carrying out those beliefs in practical ways. The problem is that we have become so complacent, I think, as church members and as pastors, to just sort of sit back and do things in the easiest possible way, that we don't challenge one another, that we don't seek to hold one another up in faith and accountability in such a way that we are growing as disciples of Jesus Christ. Listen to this audio. Maybe it will spur you on. I don't know, as I explain in the audio, exactly what the next step is going to be. Maybe I'll do the Facebook Live videos and pull out the audio portion and share them on the podcast in a special podcast series. Not sure exactly what's going to happen, but the Lord seems to be talking to me rather strongly, not just today, but over the last year or so, about what it means to be a disciple and what my role as the pastor is in helping people to become disciples. So I hope you enjoy this audio. God bless and have a great day. Come back next week, and who knows what I'll be talking about then. Well, it's afternoon now, I suppose, so I'll say good afternoon. This is Pastor Terry Goodman coming to you from the lovely broadcast studio, also known as my office, at the Trinity United Methodist Church here in Big Stone Gap, Virginia. I want to talk with you for a moment on what it means to be a Christian. I have been asked to lead a workshop on Saturday, October 27th for our district on it's helping persons to become certified as lay servants and lay speakers and so forth. And I've been asked to do the class on Methodist heritage. And I was given this book, or The United Methodist Way, Living Our Beliefs, by Bishop Kenneth L. Carter as sort of the textbook that I have to use. And I'll have to admit, I'd not read this before. This must have come out at some point after I went through all the things that were necessary for me to become a United Methodist pastor. 2009, yes. This was not available to me back in the 1980s. I wish that it was. I made my way through the introduction and the foreword and chapter 1. It's turning out to be a enlightening and challenging book. For instance, on page 7 in the foreword, which was written by Randy Maddox, professor of theology and Wesleyan studies at Duke University, he says this. He says, if recognition of the vital role of practices in appropriation of the transforming work of the Holy Spirit was central to the early Methodist way, Wesley's appreciation for the full range of these practices was its deep wisdom. He, meaning Wesley, often summarized this appreciation in a saying found in the early church, and the saying is this: the soul and the body make a human. The spirit and discipline make a Christian. He goes on to say, this proverb reminds us that humans are holistic creatures and that our actions rarely flow from intellectual motivations alone. To me, that was worth the price of admission, as they say. The soul and the body make a human. I have a soul, I have a body, therefore I am a human. I live, I breathe, I move about, I have interactions with other humans. Those are the very things that are the basis of who I am as an individual in this world, created by God, nourished by God. But the important thing is, he goes on to say, or the early church went on to say, the spirit and discipline make a Christian. For years now, I have been trying to understand the concept of Christian discipleship. And as a pastor, I believe that it is my role to help people grow to be better disciples. And so I have struggled with the ways to make that happen. In recent years, I've been caught up more and more into the Wesleyan way of understanding discipleship. Most recently, about 26 weeks ago, for those of you that follow my blog, the Wesleyan Connection, which is Wesleyan, CONNEXION.com. I have a blog on discipleship there. I began a weekly blog that talks about how to grow in discipleship based upon Wesley's understanding of the fruit of the Spirit being present in our life. And from the fruit of the Spirit, there then will grow acts of mercy and acts of piety. And we as Christians will learn to provoke one another in love to do the right kinds of things. That kind of concept involves a lot more than just an intellectual assent to a set of beliefs, which Methodism is not an intellectual assent to a set of beliefs. You have to understand that Methodism did not grow out of a doctrinal fight. It wasn't one way of looking at things on one side and another way of looking at things on the other side. We're not like the Reformation, we're not the Martin Luther standing up against the Catholic Church and saying you are wrong. Rather, Methodism grew out of the Anglican Church as a way for Wesley to help people stay within the church, within the doctrines of the church. Didn't have problems with the doctrines of the church. What Wesley had problems with was the fact that the people calling themselves Anglican did not seem to be living a Christian life. And Wesley wanted to begin a reform movement within Anglicanism that would help people to become better Christians. It eventually became another denomination, but that was not the original intent. this idea that we can become better Christians for Wesley took on the concept that there were certain spiritual practices, there were certain spiritual disciplines, there were certain things that you needed to do if you wanted to become a better Christian. And you could do that whether you're Anglican or Lutheran or whatever branch you might be. These things can apply, I think, but I'm talking about the uniquely Methodist understanding that we must engage in these spiritual practices, practices of piety, practices of reading the Bible, of praying, practices of mercy, reaching out and helping people, of recognizing the injustice that's found in the world around us, that there is this whole envelope, so to speak, this whole way of looking at the world that separates us from just being merely a body with a soul, but that through spiritual help and practice on our behalf, we go to be more than just a body and we become a Christian. Now, I don't know how this is going to unfold in the weeks ahead. The book has got my attention. I've got to read it between now and the end of October in order to be prepared to teach the class. Maybe a series of sermons will come out of it. Maybe a series of online talks like this is going to come from the book. I don't know, but I am intrigued. It has caught my attention and reminded me of some of my Methodist roots that perhaps I didn't get inculcated into me as I should back in the 1980s when I was in seminary. I feel almost at times as if I'm going back to that seminary level trying to learn and ascertain some of the teachings of Wesley because, to be honest, there was very little taught about Wesley and the Wesley movement. We had our courses in theology and polity that were required, but otherwise it was a much broader spectrum of Christian thought, belief, ideology, and theology that was taught to me in a seminary, even a Methodist seminary. The broad picture of Christianity was taught, and not so much the narrow picture of what Wesley was all about. It's only been the last decade or so that these things of Wesley have begun to catch my attention and make me go, wow, that's something that I wish I'd thought of a long time ago. And so I encourage you to check back every now and then. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I'm not sure how I'm going to publish it. I'm not sure how I'm going to promote it, but I'm going to be talking about growing deeper in our walk with God through Methodist practices and Methodist ideas. And I'm encouraging you, if you want to learn more about what it means to be a practicing Methodist, to be a growing Christian, to check back and see what I might be learning as I go on this journey myself. So God bless. Have a great day. Leave a comment. You know, if you go to the trouble of making it this far, leave a comment. Say something. Let me know that you've been listening. Let others know that you've been listening. And hello, it's me again. And I just wanted to say I'm sorry for that rather abrupt ending to the audio that you were listening to, but I got into a rant and rave about Facebook that I didn't necessarily want to share with you there, and so I cut it off rather abruptly right there. But I hope that you found what I said to be challenging, and I hope that you will take to heart this idea of growing deeper in your faith and looking at some Wesleyan ways to make that happen. God bless. Have a great day and week, and I hope that you'll be back next week to listen to what's going on. This is Pastor Goodman. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Wesleyan Connection. Be sure to check back often for more podcasts.